Hi, I'm James, and I'm 73 years old. My life has always been a balance of the practical and the unexplained. I'm a man who's spent decades working with my hands, building homes, fixing things, taking care of my family. But something happened to me a few years ago that I can only describe as a direct encounter with the divine, something that involved angels and changed my entire perspective on life, death, and what lies beyond. It was a late autumn afternoon when everything started. I was at home alone, working on repairing an old chair in my garage, when I suddenly felt a sharp, unbearable pain in my chest. I'd always been healthy, rarely visiting doctors, so this pain felt like a surprise attack on my body. I collapsed onto the concrete floor, struggling to breathe. The world around me started to fade, and as the darkness consumed me, I realized this might be the end. But that's where my story really begins. I found myself floating above my body, watching as I lay motionless on the cold floor. There was no fear, no confusion, only a strange, calming detachment. I could see the house around me, the half-finished chair, the tools scattered about, but it all felt distant, as if I no longer belonged there. Then, I saw them, two figures standing at the edge of the garage, just beyond the shadows. They were radiant, glowing softly like they were made of pure light. I knew instantly that they were angels. I had always heard about angels in church, but seeing them with my own eyes was overwhelming. These beings weren't like the ones depicted in paintings. They were both majestic and incredibly gentle, their presence filling the space with peace. One of the angels stepped forward, looking directly at me. Though they didn't speak with words, I could hear them in my mind. The angel told me that I was at a crossroads and that I had a choice to make. They could take me with them, or I could return to my life, to the family and work I still had ahead of me. For a moment, I hesitated. The thought of leaving everything behind, my wife, my children, my grandchildren, was too much. But the peace I felt in that moment with the angels was unlike anything I had ever experienced on earth. It felt like I was home, like everything I had ever longed for was right there in their presence. But as I thought about my wife, Carol, and my kids, something inside me shifted. I wasn't ready to leave them behind, not yet. I had unfinished business, things I needed to say, things I needed to do. I felt an overwhelming sense of purpose, like I still had more to give. If it's not my time, please send me back, I thought. I could feel the angel's approval, though no words were spoken. With a gentle touch, more like an energy than anything physical, the angel placed a hand on my shoulder. And just like that, I was back in my body. The pain returned instantly, and I gasped for air. The paramedics had arrived, and I could hear their voices shouting instructions as they worked on me. My body was shaking from the shock, but inside, I felt a sense of calm. I knew I had been given a second chance. Weeks passed after the heart attack, and as I recovered, I couldn't stop thinking about the angels. The encounter had left a deep mark on me, one that I couldn't ignore. I had always been a man who believed in what he could see and touch, but now, everything felt different. I had experienced something beyond this world, something that couldn't be explained by logic or science. And then it happened again. About a year later, after undergoing a major surgery to repair the damage from the heart attack, I had another near-death experience. This time, it was even more vivid. I found myself in what I can only describe as a vast, glowing space, like a foyer that stretched infinitely in every direction. There was no floor, no ceiling, just light and a feeling of endless possibility. In the distance, I saw figures approaching. As they drew closer, I realized they were my parents. My mother, who had passed away more than 30 years ago, and my father, who I lost just after my first son was born. But there was someone else with them too, my first wife, Lily, who had died in a car accident when our youngest child was just 8 years old. Seeing them all together, so full of life and energy, was overwhelming. I ran to them, embracing them, and for the first time in years, I felt whole again. They were younger, healthier than when I had last seen them, and their joy at seeing me was palpable. Lily smiled at me, her eyes full of love. My parents stood behind her, nodding in approval. But before I could ask them anything, a powerful presence filled the space. I turned and saw him, Jesus. His light was brighter than anything I had ever seen, but it wasn't blinding. It was warm, comforting, and I felt drawn to him. Without speaking, he asked me a question that pierced my soul. Where is your heart, James? At first, I didn't know how to answer. I thought about my life, about all the years I had spent working hard, building a life for my family. But I also thought about the times I had been selfish, the moments when I had let my pride get in the way of what really mattered. I realized that I had spent so much time focused on worldly things that I had often neglected the deeper connections that truly made life meaningful. Jesus wasn't judging me, but his question was a call for reflection. It was as if he was inviting me to look deeper, to realign my heart with the things that mattered most: love, family, faith. In that moment, I vowed to live differently, to focus on the things that truly mattered. After what felt like an eternity in that divine space, I knew it was time to return. The angels appeared again, their light surrounding me, and I felt myself being pulled back to my body. When I woke up in the hospital, I felt a profound sense of peace. I had been given a second, and now a third, chance at life. Since that day, my life has changed in ways I never expected. I no longer take anything for granted. Every day feels like a gift, a chance to connect with the people I love and to live with purpose. I know that the angels are with me, guiding me, and I've learned to listen for their presence, even in the quiet moments. I now share my story with others, hoping to inspire them to look beyond the mundane, to see the angels that are watching over all of us. We may not always see them, but they are there, waiting to help, to guide, to protect. And if there's one thing I've learned from my experiences, it's this: life is fragile, but it is also filled with meaning. And the love we share, whether with family, friends, or even strangers, is what truly matters. The angels are real, and they remind us of the beauty and purpose that exists in every moment. My name is Peter, and I am 65 years old. I've always lived a relatively simple life. I was raised in a small town where community and family were everything. My parents were religious, but I never took faith too seriously. I always considered myself a practical man, someone who trusted what I could see and touch. For most of my life, I worked as an electrician, fixing problems that I could understand with wires and circuits. I thought life was something you had to power through, solve the issues that came your way, and keep moving forward. But that all changed when I had a near-death experience, an experience that forever altered how I understood life, death, and the existence of angels. It happened 2 years ago. I was working on a house renovation, nothing unusual, just another day on the job. But that day, something went wrong. I don't know if it was faulty wiring or just bad timing, but as I worked, I felt an overwhelming jolt of electricity surge through me. My vision blurred, and before I knew it, I collapsed to the floor. I don't remember much of what happened immediately after, but I later found out that my heart had stopped. My colleagues called 911, and the paramedics rushed to try and revive me. But while my body lay lifeless on the ground, I was somewhere else. When I first opened my eyes, I realized I wasn't in my body anymore. I was floating, hovering above the room. I saw my coworkers panicking, trying to figure out what had happened. I watched the paramedics arrive and begin working on me, using a defibrillator to shock my heart back to life. But I felt nothing, no pain, no fear. In fact, I felt more alive than I had ever felt in my life. It was as if I had shed a heavy weight I didn't even know I was carrying. Then, something extraordinary happened. As I hovered there, watching the chaos below, I noticed two figures standing near me. They were unlike anything I had ever seen before, beings of light, glowing with an intense but calming energy. At first, I wasn't sure what they were. Were they paramedics? But as I focused on them, I realized they were something much more powerful. These were angels. The angels didn't speak to me with words, but I could feel their presence in my soul. They radiated a sense of peace and understanding that I had never known. One of them, taller than the other, reached out to me, though not with a physical hand. It was as if a warm, gentle energy was embracing my very spirit. The message was clear without them saying anything out loud: "It's not your time. You still have work to do." As they communicated with me, I felt a rush of memories, moments from my life flashing before me. But instead of just watching these moments, I felt them with a depth I had never experienced. I saw myself as a child, my mother tucking me into bed, and I felt the love she had for me like it was happening all over again. I saw the birth of my daughter, the pride and joy of holding her for the first time. And then, I saw the moments I had missed, times when I had been so focused on work or everyday concerns that I had forgotten to appreciate the love and support around me. The angels were showing me not just what I had lived but what I had overlooked. The taller angel then gave me a choice: I could return to my body, or I could continue on. The idea of moving forward, of staying in this peaceful place with these beings, was tempting. But I knew deep down that I wasn't done yet. My daughter had just started college. My wife was still at home, and there was so much more I wanted to say and do. So, I made my decision. If you let me go back, I thought, I promise I'll live differently. I'll pay attention to the things that matter. I'll be more present. The angels seemed to acknowledge my choice. Without a word, they sent me back. And just like that, I was pulled back into my body. The pain returned, the intense, searing pain of being jolted back to life by the defibrillator. My chest burned, and I gasped for air, but I was alive. When I woke up in the hospital, I couldn't shake the feeling of what I had just experienced. The doctors told me I was lucky to be alive. I had been clinically dead for several minutes, and they had almost given up on reviving me. But I knew it wasn't just luck. It was something greater. The experience changed me. I no longer see the world the same way. I know now that angels are real, that they walk among us, guiding us even when we don't realize it. They are not just figures from religious stories or myths. They are real, tangible beings who watch over us, helping us when we need it most. I've shared my story with others, but not everyone believes me. Some people think it was just a hallucination or the result of oxygen deprivation in my brain. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And I know that those angels saved me for a reason. Since that day, I've made it my mission to live more consciously. I don't rush through life anymore, ignoring the beauty and love around me. I spend more time with my family, making sure they know how much they mean to me. I've also found myself being more spiritual, praying more often, not out of obligation but